Picture this: Glasgow, November 4th, 1818. The air in the Anatomy Theatre at the University of Glasgow is thick with anticipation and the metallic tang of fear. Public dissections are the blockbuster events of the era, a morbid blend of science and spectacle. But today is different. Today, Scottish physician Andrew Ure is about to conduct an experiment so audacious, so unsettling, it will blur the line between life and death. The subject of this experiment is Matthew Clydesdale, a man executed earlier for murder of an old man with a pickaxe, legal under the Murder Act of 1751, which allowed dissection of murderers' bodies for anatomical purposes. Anatomy professor James Jeffrey had claimed the body for dissection and summoned Ure to assist. Drawn by Ure's shocking idea, attach the dead man to a voltaic pile and see if the sparks of life could be rekindled. It was the height of the galvanic age. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein had appeared only months earlier, and some whispered that Glasgow might spawn its own monster. Clydesdale's body, still warm, lied on the dissection table. The crowd, a mix of students, physicians, and the morbidly curious, leans in. They're not just here for an anatomy lesson. They're here to witness what many are calling an attempt at resurrection. Ure, a man of science and showmanship, stands before them. In his hands, not scalpels and forceps, but two rods attached to wires of a powerful galvanic battery. This is the age of animal electricity, a revolutionary concept pioneered by Luigi Galvani, who had made dead frogs' legs twitch with electrical currents in the 1780s. But Ure is about to take this idea to a terrifying new level. He isn't interested in twitching frog legs. He's aiming to reanimate a human being, or as others would put it, play God. This event would have been highly honorable and useful to science, he says. He attaches one electrode to the back of Clydesdale's neck and another to his heel. The moment the circuit is completed, the effect is instantaneous and horrifying. The executed man's leg is thrown out with such force that it nearly knocks over an assistant. The audience gasps. This is no subtle twitch, it is a violent, convulsive movement. But Ure is just getting started. He moves the electrodes, targeting different nerves. When he applies the current to the phrenic nerve, which controls the diaphragm, the dead man's chest begins to rise and fall. It looks for all the world as if Matthew Clydesdale is breathing again. A collective shudder runs through the room. Is this science or something far more sinister? The whispers in the crowd grow louder. They're witnessing a dead man breathe. The line between a biological reflex and the spark of life is becoming terrifyingly thin. Ure, feeding off the crowd's reaction, prepares for his grand finale. He targets the facial nerves. One electrode touches the forehead, the other the heel. The result is pure nightmare fuel. The dead man's face contorts into a ghastly series of expressions. Rage, horror, despair, and a dreadful smiling grin flash across his features. The muscles of his brow contract, his lips pull back, and one eye opens, staring blankly at the horrified onlookers. An assistant, overcome with terror, faints on the spot. Several members of the audience, convinced they've seen a man brought back from the dead only to be plunged into agony, flee the theatre. And Ure's interpretation: the nervous system and musculature still respond to electrical stimulation immediately after death. The body remains a machine of sorts. Rumors quickly outrun reality. Sensational newspapers and storytellers claim Ure had truly reanimated the murderer, only for Jeffrey to end the spectacle with a lethal cut. In fact, neither scientist claimed to have resurrected Clydesdale. Most historians even emphasize that Ure and Jeffrey only intended to study how nerves responded to electricity. In Ure's own notes, there is no claim of miracle, only descriptions of convulsions, breath, and horrible facial grimaces. Yet the legacy of that grim November morning was not just darkness. Ure's crude experiment inadvertently sketched a path towards future medicine. In his paper, he even noted that moist electrodes on the nerves might revive a dying person. In other words, he had just defined the electric defibrillator decades before it even existed. A century later, doctors built those very machines. And historians say these galvanic trials made way for resuscitation technologies like defibrillation. Today we can even transplant organs and preserve tissues by chilling bodies, all distant echoes of the quest to coax life out of death. But if that moment opened doors for healing, it also left haunting ethical questions. Ur allowed the dead to suffer on a stage, and the public gasped at the blurred line between life and death. Was it noble or monstrous to spark a corpse in the name of science? In the flickering torchlight of 1818, Ur stepped across that line. He was a man of science, pushing the boundaries of what was known. But for the public, the story was very different. Ur's experiment tapped into the deepest fears of the time. In an era of grave robbing, the infamous resurrection men who supplied medical schools with fresh corpses, the idea that science could not only dissect the dead but also puppet them or even bring them back was profoundly disturbing. And as the news of the Glasgow experiment spread like wildfire, it became a sensation, discussed in parlors, pubs, and print. The experiment became a cautionary tale about scientific hubris. Where is the line between discovery and desecration, between healing and horror? Ur saw himself as a pioneer, but to many, he was a man who had trespassed into a domain reserved for God. He had animated the flesh, but could not restore the soul, creating not life, but a terrifying mockery of it. Today, we understand the science behind it. Ur was simply stimulating the deceased's nerves and muscles with electricity. There was no chance of actual reanimation. But in 1818, to the people who saw a dead man breathe and rage, it was a glimpse into the abyss. It was the moment the monster truly stepped off the page and onto the operating table. So the next time you think of Frankenstein, remember it's not just a story. It's a reflection of real scientific events and real public fears. Remember Dr. Andrew Ure, the man who, for one terrifying afternoon, seemed to bring the dead back to life, and in doing so, helped solidify one of the most enduring myths in modern history. What do you think? Was Ure a brilliant pioneer or a reckless showman? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button. Subscribe and join us as we venture into the forbidden history of medicine that science would rather wish left unknown. See you next time.